Hi friends, I wanted to give you a 3-week update on my AeroGarden experiment. So these are the pictures in 1-week increments. So the first week, second week, and third week for each one of the seeds that were planted in these pots that came with the AeroGarden setup. The only thing that didn't germinate was the mint, which I'm fine with because I already have mint in my garden. I think the longest germination time on these pre-seeded pots was 21 days. This garden setup is exactly 21 days old. So that's how quickly some of these things germinated and then grew. I fertilized them according to the package, the bottle that came with the set. And then at the end of this, we are going to go ahead and reseed new pods. I just bought replacements from Amazon and then seeds I already had and reused the plastic insert and the domes. And then we swapped over to a organic hydroponic fertilizer. I honestly had no real expectations for how well this would grow. I was really hoping that it would make for great germinating. Since I've struggled with brassicas in the past, that's what I was really hoping to get started in here while the weather is still hot. And since there's 6 pods, I'd be able to start 3 of each kind, cauliflower and broccoli, and then get them planted out in the garden. So here's the types that we're going to go ahead and transplant into my original GreenStalk planter. So we're just going to go ahead and put the 5 different types right up in that top tier. I came through and I tried to use the basket to get the hole, because I figured that was probably the most accurate for sizing since I hadn't actually taken them out yet. That was just the mint one. I resorted to a wooden spoon handle. It worked very well. I just overestimated how deep they needed to be when I actually went through to plant them. So I had to kind of backfill that hole a little bit that I made to get those pods in there properly. I started out thinking that I could just pop them in there with the water basin on top, and I quickly realized that was not going to work so well, so I popped that top off. Now you're getting the first look at these roots with me. I really did not know how many roots would be coming out. I didn't know the texture of those inserts inside the plastic basket thing in the pots. So taking these out was a complete surprise. And as you can see on them, some of them are longer than others. This dill, though, quite amazing amount of roots that came out of that dill. I did have dill in one of my raised beds last season. So I'm assuming that all of those roots are because, in my experience, my dill got so tall, those likely have to stabilize it. So we'll see how well they actually do in my GreenStalk. Right here we are peeling the sticker off of the thyme. And I put those spaces in, or chose the pockets, I guess, for each herb based on how hot it is here in Central Florida. So I put some of those ones that I felt like were going to be a little more fragile towards the back. Then the dill was so large, and I knew it was going to get larger, that I kind of put it off to the side, hoping that it would come up and over and seek the sun out anyway. We filled up this GreenStalk together, I don't know, a couple months ago probably. It took 4, I believe, bags of the organic potting soil. And then after I went and planted all of these, I did put some of the liquid fertilizer in the top and then watered it down into at least this first level. It didn't really fill the whole basin with water since the rest of the planter is empty. I do plan to fill the rest of the planter. I think I'm going to try some carrots in there and maybe some other root vegetables, because I've heard that the GreenStalk is decent for root vegetables. And I haven't really planted anything in here yet since I filled it up. I just filled it up and was kind of using it as an experiment to see how often I would pay attention to it where I had put it originally. So earlier this morning, I had to go and take the GreenStalk apart and move it closer to my back door where I let my dogs out in the morning when I get home from work, and then go take care of my chickens. That way it's right there. When I fill their water bowls, I can just fill this basin and keep this watered. I realized that if it's not convenient for me to take care of it when starting a new habit, that I just won't. It'll be neglected. Everything I've learned about GreenStalks is that they need attention. They need water, they need checked, they need looked after. And I realized that I was looking at it when I was walking out to take care of my chickens, but there wasn't a hose close enough for me to stand there and fill the basin with. I would have to drag the hose from my back door across both patios to get to where I had originally set this up. Now this is the dill with all of those roots. All of the other herbs came out nice and easy. They just kind of slipped right out of their baskets. This one, though, with all of those roots, got tangled. So I just kind of gently detangled them and slipped the basket off. And you can see there that that was really all the root loss that there was. They actually organized themselves pretty well through the basket and into the fertilizer in that AeroGarden tank. My daughter was joking when I was working on reseeding the new pods that I got myself a fish tank for plants. My goal over the next few weeks is to germinate some brassicas for the fall garden, because down here in Florida, it stays decently warm through the winter. I think our average is maybe in the low 70s through the winter. And yes, there's some cold days and we do have a risk of frost. But I think that if I checked it, our risk of first frost is like the beginning of January and our last frost is the end of January. So I'm really not worried about it. I just want to get them started in probably about 2 to 3 week increments so we can hopefully get a harvest every few weeks of broccoli and cauliflower. I did go through last week, I believe, and planted out my Brussels sprouts straight into the garden just to see how they would go. So I figure that by the time these come up, I'll be able to determine if I'm going to need to do the same with some Brussels sprouts. Now, I don't really know how well these pods would work for root vegetables because they kind of are a spongy texture. I thought that they were going to be more of a peat moss that was pressed together and that would kind of crumble apart when I took them out, like potting soil does, I guess. but they really didn't. They kind of still held a sponge-like texture. I was able to squeeze water out of them. I kind of played around with the mint one when I took it out and realized it never germinated. So I don't know if a root vegetable would break through it or if it would cause some kind of disfiguration. Overall, I am really thrilled with how the AeroGarden germinated these seeds and got these seedlings started for me. And all the roots that came through, I'm really hoping that my GreenStalk just kind of takes them over and gives us some great growth. I've really had some bad luck with herbs in the past down here because it's so hot. But I love them for cooking. They make everything taste so much better. This is an overview of how they look in the GreenStalk. I'm going to put the basin back on here in a minute, and then we will get started on getting the tank cleaned out and getting the new seeds put in. I was a little worried how the water would look, but it's actually not too bad. These are the new inserts that I got. My daughter was back there having guacamole and chips. The fertilizer that I got to get it organic, and then the seeds that I put in there. So I just did 3 of the amazing cauliflower and 3 broccoli, and I'll keep you updated how it grows. Thank you so much for sharing a little time with me today and entertaining me through my experiments.